welcome, but I was told I'm supposed to say howdy. 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 All right. I'm Jen Brown. I am a sportscaster with ESPN, and I just want to welcome all of you guys to the first annual Sports Branding Summit. I guess is that what we're going to call it here? It is. It's brought to you guys. It is co-founded by, let me get this correct, co-sponsored by the Texas A&M Center for Sport Management Research and Education and the Sport Management Division of Texas A&M Health and I can never say that word, kinesiology. I want to make sure I got that right, and I didn't. So I just want to welcome all of you guys. We've got a great little event planned for all of you. I assume that you guys are either in the sports management department, interested in branding, or maybe just a fan of some of the people that are going to be in the panel that we have coming out here. Now, the purpose of the panel is really just to discuss the importance of branding in the sports world. I'm sure if you are students, maybe Dr. Bennett has talked about this quite a bit, but it's really an important thing, whether it's on an individual level, like an athlete, or on a team level where you're representing an entire group of athletes, or even a corporation, Fortune 500 to the smallest level of clothing companies or sports drinks and all those types of things. And as you'll see, our panel, they're going to give you a good, diverse view on what sports branding means to them, what they think about it. And so I'm going to be kind of the moderator. I'm going to ask them questions, but at the end, you guys will get to ask them questions as well. So I guess without further ado, we'll bring out our first panelist. We've got Jeff Dubiel. He is the VP of Sports Marketing at Pepsi. Jen Storms, she is also Senior VP of Marketing at Gatorade. The next guy I'm sure you guys have never heard of, he is the running back for the Jets and All-Pro, LaDainian Tomlinson. Certainly not least, we have Jamie Roots. He is the president of the Houston Texans. All right, so first and foremost, is that you want me to wear it? Okay, we're gonna. They said I might need it, so we'll try to do that and see how that works. First, we're just going to let you guys get to know everybody. So we'll start down here. Jeff, if you'll just give a little bit of information about you, your background, and what you do at Pepsi.
Sure, and we'll try to speak loudly. My name is Jeff Dubiel. I was born and bred in the greatest sports city in the country, Boston, Massachusetts. Second to College Station.
It took him 5 seconds.
You aren't doing that well. I have to work that into every presentation. I'm happy to be here with you today. I think the idea was to give a little background. I come from Boston. I went to the University of Massachusetts undergrad. I went on to the Darden School at the University of Virginia for my grad school. Started out in the beverage business on the West Coast and the wine business, working for the E&J Gallo Winery, before I decided I wanted to go work for the biggest and best brand in the country, which is Pepsi. So 12 years ago, I moved back east, working out of New York, and I've worked for Pepsi for the past 12 years. I've had a bunch of brand jobs, I've had a bunch of promotional jobs, and I had an opportunity to step into, because I've got a huge passion for sports, the sports marketing role, where I help to grow our brands through sports on lifestyle brands like Pepsi and Mountain Dew and AMP, working with my counterpart, Jim, who handles all of our Gatorade business. And I think that's probably enough for me for now.
All right, Jen.
All right, I'm Jen Storms. I'm born and raised in Colorado Springs, Colorado, so a diehard Bronco. But I actually was a competitive ski racer for most of my life until I went up against a young woman named Peekaboo Street, and she blew me off the hill, so I decided to go to college. It was time to quit skiing and try not to go to the Olympics, but instead try to actually get a degree. So went to Northwestern University, and out of there actually joined the United States Olympic Committee. So sports has been my life. It's the only thing I've done all my life: sports marketing, sports management, sports business. So was in the United States Olympic Committee, living in Argentina for a while. and then went to Turner Broadcasting in Atlanta for 14 years, where I worked at Turner Sports. I left Turner after becoming the head of programming and marketing for all of the Turner Sports properties, and came to Gatorade just under 2 years ago. And I would beg to differ with him. I believe that I have the best job in sports with the best brand in Gatorade. So I oversee all of our athlete team and league relationships, as well as all of our grassroots and events. And I'm sure we'll talk more about my job as we get through the questions.
All right. LT, want to tell them what you do and how you got there?
Obviously, I'm LaDainian Tomlinson. I grew up right in the Marlin, Waco area, right up the street. And I had some jobs in high school where I worked at McDonald's and a chicken place. Honestly, I worked there throughout high school, just, obviously being a young kid, earning some work while I was going to high school. Got a scholarship, obviously, to TCU to play football. There I majored in general studies. I got a minor in radio, TV, film, and psychology. And so obviously I was there on a football scholarship, did very well while I was there, and ended up getting drafted in the first round by the San Diego Chargers. So here I am now with the Jets, 10 years later.
Great. Well, I have been involved with football my entire life. I started with European football, the game of soccer. Played through college, left college. It wasn't a professional league here in the United States, so I went to work for IBM. Didn't feel a good fit there. I really had a calling back to sports, so I got a graduate degree at Indiana University and coached at the same time because I couldn't figure out whether I wanted to be on the field or off it. At the end of that, I decided I really wanted to be in sports, work for the World Cup. Went to Procter & Gamble and worked on the laundry detergent brand and got an opportunity to help start up the league, which is now called Major League Soccer. So I launched the franchise called the Columbus Crew. And we built Crew Stadium in 1999, which was the first soccer-specific stadium in the United States. And then went to the Houston Texans. It wasn't called that at the time. It was Houston NFL Holdings in 2000. And we built Reliance Stadium, launched the team, and this will be our 10th season. And just over time, adjusted responsibilities to where I run the business operations of the team.
All right. So what is a brand? A brand really is just the experience that you, people at home, or the consumer has with the people, with the product, with a person, with a team, with a firm. And it's simply, the definition is the immediate image, emotion, or message that people experience when they think about a particular person or entity. So first, I guess we'll start with Jeff. What is the brand of Pepsi? What is your brand?
First, I need to understand my audience, so just a raise of hands if you're a Pepsi versus Coke. So who's Pepsi out here?
Oh, we have a lot of converting to do.
Coke? All right, we got some work to do. We're on campus, which is important. So we market a lot of brands, lifestyle brands, so I'll talk tonight mostly about Pepsi. And from a positioning standpoint, as we think about Pepsi, we've always considered ourselves what I'll call the fighter brand, or the challenger brand. And that's not just about the folks that we compete against down in Atlanta. It's more about how we think about our brand in the world with consumers. And not to take you back, but from a history standpoint, it's important for our history as we think about where we've headed from a brand standpoint. Not that anyone was around at that time, but if I took you back to the Great Depression in 1929, we were a challenger brand at that time, where Pepsi was the company that started selling twice the ounces for the same price. And it was a sea change in how they did business at the time, and so it was different. In the 50s, Pepsi was the company that led a lot of the youth rebellion at the time, or felt like we were a leader and not trying to mirror culture at the time. In the 60s, Pepsi was one of the first companies to have African Americans shown in a positive light in advertising, which just seemed really, really stupid at the time. But it was pushing and challenging, so forth. 80s and 90s we did it with music, and today we've done a lot of challenging work around social good. And so that's the starting point from a positioning standpoint, where the challenger brand or the fighter brand. It also happens to be we're number 2 in a category versus our competitor in Atlanta. From a brand standpoint, what are we trying to bring across to consumers? Our center of gravity is about fun and enjoyment and youthful culture. That's really where we are, and it's not about tradition and functional and stodgy, which we would typically give some of the attributes of our competition, although Steve Moore, who I found out today worked for Coca-Cola, so we'll be talking about that tonight. And so that's really what we're trying to do. It's about enjoyment and fun and youthful optimism is what we try to bring across, and we try to use sports to help us to convey that message to our consumers.
What about you with Gatorade, Jen?
I think the interesting sort of position that you can put next to what Jeff was just talking about, the fact that Gatorade is all about being real, credible, and authentic. And it's to sports. So Gatorade is sports and sports is Gatorade. That's all we're about. Our team target is that young teen athlete, performance athlete. They're also an early adopter, so they're about innovation and trying new things. So that's what our brand is about, is making sure that we are targeting them with that authentic message. And you know, we talk a lot internally about the heart, hustle, and soul of an athlete or of a team or of a league, and that's what makes our brand so special. And it's funny, when we were talking about branding and what is the Gatorade brand, I kind of was just going to ask LT to stand up, because that's probably just an easier way to say, I mean, he is the epitome of the brand. He is the heart, hustle, and soul of Gatorade. It's about being real, credible, authentic. And when we put a 30-second spot out there, which you see right now for our protein recovery drink, featuring him, it is about the actual, you know, things that he goes through on a daily basis as an elite NFL athlete, and the toll that it takes on him, and the fact that he needs a partner in his life through Gatorade that's going to provide him and help him recover. He's 10 years into the league, and he's still putting up numbers that are absolutely amazing and phenomenal, and you know, it's incredible, and we want to be part of that story, and that's why we're with him, because he is the elite of the elite, and we can help him prime, perform, and recover for what he's doing. So really, authenticity, credibility, that's what we're about.
Let me ask you this real quick, Jeff. Pepsi, you know, we don't think just sports. When we think Gatorade, I know it's definitely branded in sports. What percentage would you say does Pepsi approach the sports market in terms of as a whole in branding?
What percentage?
Like what focus, I guess.
You know, the way we think about it is this, and we've had a lot of conversations over the past couple of years about where we sit as being an endemic brand versus a non-endemic brand. So Gatorade, Adidas, Nike, they're in the world of sports. They are endemic to the sports experience, and consumers understand that. And so the question that our senior team has had is, what is our role in sports? And we spend a lot of money in sports. If you took it all away tomorrow, what would happen to our business? We would argue that we are absolutely endemic to the sports experience, but it's to the fan experience. And so we're very complementary. Jen's business is all about on the field of play and athletes and fueling performance, and I see my business very much about enhancing the fan experience and absolutely being endemic to that experience. And we'll get to this through some of the Q&A. The question ends up being for brands like Pepsi, we've got a lot of competition that play in the fan experience. And so what about the fan experience can we own that's different from Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, P&G, etc.?
Sure. All right. LT, do you consider yourself a brand?
I would at this time. I think first off, I was able to create a brand by being in the National Football League, the biggest sports brand there is. And so I think what any athlete tries to do when he's in an organization like the NFL is to try to stand out where he can stand alone at some point in time after his career is over, where people can recognize LaDainian Tomlinson. I think that's what any athlete tries to do. And I think at this point, you know, I am, because of great partners like Gatorade, who we partnered together, who is already a great brand. I always look at it like this. Sometimes you may not see the person behind the brand, but you recognize the name. For example, you know, you may not know how Gatorade was created, but you definitely recognize the word Gatorade. And so, same with Pepsi. same with Houston, Texas. And so that's what, as an athlete, you try to do.
All right, Jamie, what about the Houston Texans? How would you describe your brand?
Well, we were fortunate that we started 10 years ago with a blank sheet of paper, did a lot of focus groups, research across the state of Texas, trying to pick a name, first of all, so we weren't locked into anything. We could say, and the name, as you mentioned, is so incredibly important. At the end of the day, a brand is that, a name. I mean, boil it down. It's a very important choice. So Texans was the name we came to, and we tried to define what people in Texas, particularly in Houston, thought when they thought of Texans. And we came up with 5 words. That's pride, courage, strength, tradition, and independence. They were powerful words that came up over and over and over when we asked people is, what does it mean to be a Texan? And so for the first couple of years, we didn't have any star players like this man next to me. We just had, you know, the promise of a football team. So we talked about that a lot. But as we've evolved as an organization, we really, our brand lives in the experience that you have with us. And so the things that people, we believe they take away from their experience with us is words like integrity, tradition, authenticity, both being authentically NFL and authentically Texan, courtesy. And we really do excel on with courtesy on game day. When you come, people, I mean, I just was on the phone this afternoon. Someone talking about the experience with an usher and what they did and how that was so different than what they experienced at other stadiums and how it allowed for a memorable experience for him and his son. And that we care. We, in the community, you ask folks in Houston about who does more for Houston sports-wise, I mean, there's no comparison. When Hurricane Katrina hits, we're out raising $2.5 million in a week. When Hurricane Ike hits, we're out raising $2 million in 2 weeks to support the people right around us. And we're in the middle of the football season. The #1 contributor to the United Way on a per capita basis in Houston. The #1 in the National Football League. And that's guys just like this guy right here, putting their money back into the community to make a difference. So we care about the community. So what we tried to do and how we've been able to create those things is figure out what would make us different. Things like tailgating, courtesy that I talked about, caring, innovation in the experience and being perceived as a leader. Those things make us stand out. And we believe those things are highly relevant to our fan base. So differentiation and relevance is at the core of what your brand strength is. And we have a few things, we do them really well. And we've been rewarded with 9 seasons of sellouts. Knock on wood, it'll always be a sellout. With a team that's had 1 winning season and no playoff appearances. And just imagine what will happen when we put the team performance together with that. It'll be something magical.
There's something you just spoke that reminds me, when I started at ESPN, the one thing that I found that I hadn't seen in other companies that I worked for a short period of time, but with ESPN, they were always reiterating their brand and their message, their mission statement, and I saw it everywhere. And you talk about all the way down to the ushers. How important is it, and I guess because people here might be going out and getting jobs in industries where branding, because I assume that it's similar in most companies that have done very well. How important is it to make sure that everybody gets the branding message and then in place implements that in their particular roles within their company?
Well, I'd say it's absolutely critical. For me, it starts with the purpose of the organization, and then as it goes down, you flesh it out. But we have 3 things. We have only 3 things we're trying to do. Win championships, create memorable experiences for people. That's not just hosting games. That's creating memories for people, right? And there's a lot that goes into that. And then number 3, do great things for Houston. Whether that's a Texans game and being on Monday Night Football and presenting our community to the world in the most positive light, or hosting the Texas Bowl, which is now the 4th or 5th largest non-BCS bowl game in America, or bringing international soccer to our community, or concerts, whatever we can do to make a difference for Houston, we want to do that. And everybody in our organization gets that's what we're here to do. We make it real simple, and that's really, I think, what makes for a powerful brand is the simplicity of what you're trying to do.
And I'll add to that. I agree. I think it's interesting you talk about the organization that you work in, and as you probably would hope, I mean, everyone at Gatorade, we're not only athletes, but we live the brand, and we love it and we bleed it. But we also extend that to our partners, and a great example is putting LT against, a tennis player that we signed a couple of years ago. One of the reasons why we signed LaDainian was because we talked to him, we spent time with him, we spent time with his family. We know he's actually a Gatorade athlete. He's grown up with Gatorade in his life. It's fueled him before we possibly came in and started talking to him. Put that next to a couple of years ago, the company went out and signed an international tennis player. And she actually did not drink Gatorade. Not because she didn't want to, but she grew up in, a Russian country in an area of Russia where they did not have Gatorade, so it wasn't available to her. And what that became to us was an athlete holding our bottle, which is not what Gatorade is about. That's not authenticity to us, that's borrowing on the equity of sports to us, and that's not what Gatorade does. We're about authenticity, so when you see our athletes consuming those products and working with us, it's because they truly are working with us, and we're meeting their needs. We're testing them. We're getting folks like LaDainian into the Gatorade Sports Science Institute. So not only do our employees believe in the brand and work with us, but our teams, our league partners, and our athletes believe in the brand and work with us like family.
That was going to lead me to my next question, which is, what specifically, when you guys are looking at an athlete or a team to have your products in, what are the important things to your individual brands? What qualities are you looking for? And you kind of touched on that just briefly about LaDainian, but what's important to Pepsi or Gatorade?
A lot of different stuff. I wish we had a system where it was easy checklist. I think for most of what we do, it ends up with really simple questions. Is there a cultural fit with our brand? Is there a fit with the target that we're going after? Is that partner going to help us solve for a business headache? As much as we're about branding, we're also about solving for business problems right now. And my job is to grow the business. And so as I think through our filter, is it relevant? Is it a right fit for our brand? And the message that we're trying to bring across from a business standpoint, is it helping me to solve for a business headache, whether it's driving awareness on a new product or driving distribution in a particular market. So there's a simple set of criteria that we go through, but then you get to more specific sets of criteria as we think about the NFL or our partners from a team standpoint. That's when we get into the minutiae ranking system and its relevance within the community. From a business standpoint, where are the opportunities? And then what we consider kind of the X factor, which is whatever else might be interesting at that time, which could come down to is the president a fan of the Houston Texans or the New York Giants? And so we think about all of that to get to a place to see if it makes sense or not and then move forward.
I think for Gatorade it's probably more simple. We have a very small elite roster. It's less than 30 athletes total. And when you look at a $4 billion business, that's not a lot of athletes to be using to get the message out. But it's the elite of the elite. But going very strong within that, as I mentioned, is they have to be Gatorade athletes to start and be part of our brand. And then we also spend anywhere from 6 months to a year with an athlete before we would sign them, or even talking to a league partner or a team partner. We want to get to know those folks. And a tribute to that is we're trying to be with you so that we're fueling your achievement. So we hope to partner with you before you are even hitting your pinnacle and helping you through your nutritional needs. And I mean, we're proud, obviously, with our partnership with LaDainian. We signed him back in, I think it was around 2003. And you look at what he's done, and even around 2006, I'd say is probably one of your most incredible years, MVP, and a lot of records within the NFL that are still being held. So that's the type of story, whether with Kevin Durant, who's about to explode, is already sort of exploding, all the way to so many of our athletes. It's about that piece, and then the other piece of it, which we don't want to shy away from, make sure people know, is it's about morality and character. Look at our roster. We have a very high level of character on our entire roster. And before we just spent some time with some youth baseball players a couple of doors down, and the types of things that an elite athlete like LaDainian can tell these young folks is quite impactful. And that's the type of athlete that we obviously are going to maintain our relationship with.
And I'd also add, Jamie brought up the word experience. And so from a brand standpoint, if you're trying to cut through the clutter, if you think about the world of marketing, consumers have fragmented, the media markets have fragmented, there's so many more brands involved in the sports space. So trying to cut through the clutter is very dependent on what partners you end up picking. And I think from our vantage point, the whole sports marketing model for brands like mine has changed over the past 10 or 15 years, because fundamentally it was built on a system where it was go out and sign up a property, do some advertising, get some signage in a stadium, and maybe do some grassroots while you're there, and that was it. You were in and you're out. And it was very much transactional relationship with consumers and very signage oriented. And I think we're moving to a model that no longer is going to work. And so as I think about teams or leagues or athletes, delivering experiences that people are going to remember is going to be what makes your brand stand out. And so this movement of going from transactional relationships to true engagement, which is about delivering experiences, is really, really critical. And so as we think about those partners, it used to be a lot easier. Check, I got signage. Check, I got tickets. Check, I got this. And so now we're spending a lot more time with our partners defining how can they help us to deliver experiences that no one else can. And when you get there, then you break through.
Celebrating Jen mentioned some wonderful things about you, but you are a brand, as you just said. So, in terms of being an athlete at such a high level and having done so well as yourself, I assume that there's a lot of people that would like you to endorse their products or be a part of their brand. So, for you as an athlete, what's important to you in determining what types of companies that you're going to pair up with?
I think first off, you got to have great people around you. As much as we athletes think we know everything, we don't. And so sometimes, you have to have people with that experience in sports marketing to help you kind of get to where you want to go. And for me, I got great people around me. And so what we tried to do was partner with people or sponsors that were sponsoring the NFL a lot of times, that was really involved in, the day in and day out, the big sponsors. And, we felt like you do one thing on the field, that takes care of itself, but what are you going to do off the field? How are you going to be remembered off the field? And, I always say that people may remember, for a week, 2 weeks, what you do on the field, but the things you do off the field is the things that people will remember. And so there's obviously sometimes you may get approached by different companies that's just not a right fit at the time or never. That happens. And so you got to partner with, like I do with my team, and see if it's the perfect fit. And sometimes you make it work, sometimes you don't. But that's all a part of creating a brand and then maintaining a brand. And so, that's the way I've tried to do it. And I think so far it's worked pretty good.
What would you like people to walk away with as the LT brand? We know that you represent companies as well, but you as a person, what message are you hoping you're putting out there as a brand?
I'm a very passionate, kind of emotional person. And in fact, what you see on the commercial, with Gatorade is really and truly the way I am, seriously. And kind of that's that authenticity that, Jen talked about is just being real. And so that's who I am, passionate, emotional, caring, a family man, very involved in the community and helping my community and others. That's who I want people to know. And that's what I try to put out there for people to see on television, whether it's commercials or interviews that I may do. That's my brand. That's what I want people to see.
I know you work with a lot of athletes. How unique is his brand? Or do you come across it? Obviously, you said 30 athletes you work with, and they are what you guys consider the best of the best. But I work with a lot of athletes, and how unique would you say that his approach is? Obviously, I know what you're going to say.
Might have to get you to run the 40 here.
Exactly. I would say he's unique in a couple of ways. One is certainly, and I'm sure that Jamie and LT would agree with this, longevity within the NFL. Things are getting shorter and shorter and shorter with regard to, the NFL and people's careers. So the fact that he's maintained his elite level as long as he has is very unique. And that's why, again, there are only a few on the roster that probably stay at that level for such a long time. But I think the brand that he helps represent for us, which is so authentic, like you said, is whatever he's doing, You know, with the G Series launch last year, you probably are familiar with, we're doing pre, during, and post, before, during, and after for athletes to try to meet their needs. And this is just the tip of the iceberg with a lot of what we're launching. And he really represents that. He works out hard, he trains in the off season, he's training before and after he's practicing and playing. And so he's the perfect person that works with us because we can work with him through the science piece, but like you said, we can also work with him on the community piece. So he does a lot with our brand in different ways, which makes him incredibly unique. He's not one-sided when it comes to Gatorade. I mean, we can call LT for pretty much anything. And he's really, like you said, it's authentic to him. And he doesn't have to prep, he doesn't have to do anything, he just has to show up and be LT.
Jamie, that's very nice. It's hard to sit there and someone talk about you. Jamie, coming from the professional side of things with teams, how important is sports branding? Because I could assume it's one of the most important things. But talk a little bit about how important that is.
Well, branding and marketing kind of get mixed up, and when you're in school, you're thinking about advertising and all the kinds of things that are elements of building a brand. But the guy who built Starbucks, Howard Schultz, you may or may not know that name, but I heard him speak maybe 10 years ago, and he made a comment, brands are built from the inside out. So I see branding and world-class leadership as one and the same. If you can create a culture within your organization that has people engaging in the right habits day after day after day, how you conduct yourself is going to scream so loud, it doesn't matter what all the marketing components, they'll all kind of fall in line. Particularly in a product like ours, which is an experience. If we have people doing the right things, and so we've even boiled it down into a behavioral model for the folks who work within our organization, and it's called the impact model. It's the things that our superior people, and over time, now everyone is doing these things. People who are innovative, looking for new and better ways of doing what we're doing. M, they're memorable. They want to be memorable. They want to stand out, and they want to create memorable memories for others. P, they're passionate about what they're doing, passionate about the organization, passionate about winning. A, they're accountable. They hold themselves accountable, and they hold everyone around them accountable. C, they're courageous. They just do the right thing and accept the consequences, right? A lot of options, but always just do the right thing. And T, team, because they're only team victories. And if we can have people consistently doing that, our brand will build itself because it is built from the inside out.
We might need to license that.
I was going to say.
What'd you say?
We might need to license that.
We're going to trademark that.
That was pretty good.
The proprietary elements going on here.
Circle R.
Exactly. Add that to the end of that always.
Something that I'm curious of, and you talked about it a little bit earlier, is you were involved in creating a whole new entity. How long is the process? You said just coming up with the name, for example. I mean,
right.
How long and how many people are involved in that type of a process?
Well, we had representatives from the National Football League. We had various designers. We had members of our staff, and certainly our ownership from time to time checked in. But it was about a 6-month period for us doing research and evaluating and looking at the designs. First step was picking the name, but we said, we have 3 or 4 finalists. We can't really pick a name until we have a visual identity to go with that. That logo is such an important representation of who you are. We love the name Texans, but we could never find no one liked anything. And we were going to have to scrap our launch. So I said to our chairman, Bob McNair, said, Bob, this isn't working out very well. I need you to come to one of the focus groups and just see what we're dealing with. So he comes. The first night we showed that bullhead that you see. Didn't look exactly like what you saw. In fact, it was kind of half Aggie, half Longhorn, which nobody was happy with. But it had the bull for the first time, and he's in the first focus group I think he's ever been in, and everybody goes crazy when they see Texans and this bullhead. That's perfect. He looks at me, he says, this marketing stuff's not that hard. Right? Anyway, his magic touch being there made it happen, but it's about 6 months, and the brand has really resonated well. But again, what we do will mean more to the power of this brand over time than what it looks like.
If you were to give advice to maybe someone here who's interested in getting into sports marketing or sports branding, assuming you guys are all either undergraduate or graduates, what advice would you give them in terms of how to navigate and get to where you are, to be in charge of Pepsi or Gatorade?
You don't want to go my way. I don't know. I hate to sound cliche. When I was growing up, my dad always had a slogan that resonated with the kids, and it was, hard work beats smarts when smarts ain't working hard. Like, I literally think it comes down to having passion, having a goal for what you want to go do, working hard. You have to be smart. You have to be, in our business, we look for smart people who are analytical, who want to be in marketing and are passionate about sports. That's what we're looking for. It's being hungry enough to work harder than the person next to you is what's really important. And people that do that come into our organization and thrive. And people that come in and aren't passionate and hungry and don't want to work hard don't. So I don't know that there's much more science to that. And so every day I wake up and in my office at home, there's that slogan that sits above my desk, and I think there's something to it.
I think I'm similar to Jeff as far as do what you love what you do, and I think that shows. I can tell the people that come in my office or the people that ask me questions if they really do have the passion and the love to be in the industry. I think you do have to have that passion, because I think every single person on this panel will tell you sports is not a 9 to 5. So you absolutely have to be ready, because unless you're going to work in maybe the golf and an occasional baseball game, it's not weekdays during the day. It's nights, it's weekends, and there are sacrifices. And so just having the reality, but also having the passion to go with it, and don't give up. Be willing to go do some other things to get where you want to be. And even if you don't think that, at this stage in your career, when you're still young and you have the ability to sort of jump around and do different things, don't turn anything down. Try it. You never know. There are a couple of things in my life where I was like, really, I don't want to go do that, or I don't want to take that on. They end up being either the best experience for me or the experience that propelled my career.
One of the best pieces of our jobs, however, it's sports. Like at the end of the day, it's a cool place to be. My kids, I have 11 and 13-year-old boys who they're just like, my God, Dad, like, you have the coolest job in the world. You go to the Super Bowl, you go to the All-Star game. There's work involved in that, but at the end of the day, it's fun, right? So if you can channel that with passion and working hard, it makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. I was going to say, not to be cliche, but the same thing for me is you wake up and you love what you do. It's not work.
Yeah.
And you work hard, but it doesn't feel like work. So
yeah.
Now, Ladina, maybe some people out here are interested in working with professional athletes at some level. What have been memorable experiences for you, or what kind of character traits really stood out, or something that you were impressed with that made you want to work with particular people that maybe they would be interested in knowing?
Just go-getters. I mean, that's what I call them. People that are willing to make the phone call instead of sitting in the office and wait for a phone call to come in. And see, because there's 1,800 NFL players, right? 1,800. And you think of the guys that get the opportunity to be on commercials and to really create a brand, not very many. But, I would say maybe I would have, maybe I wouldn't have been one of them guys if I wouldn't have had someone to kind of press the envelope, to kind of go out there and contact some of these sponsors to say, hey, listen, I got a great guy. He's an up-and-coming running back. This is what he's done. Alan Zucker probably.
I was about to say.
Alan Zucker did gym like this. He's done X amount and so many touchdowns, and that's what you need. That's actually what you need. You need to sell a product, and so that's the type of people that I look for, and I think that's the best way, to put it. I mean, everybody up here has talked about their passion. That's the word that keeps coming up. It's because there's a reason for it. Passion is the thing that's going to get you to the next level. If you're passionate about what you do, you will be successful.
Well said. Jimmy, for you as president, what type of qualities or characteristics are you looking for in someone to come in and work within your organization?
Well, LT's point about passion is absolutely right. We can teach people to do anything we need them to do within our organization, but if you come with the right attitude, you will go far. But if you don't come with the right attitude, the positive attitude, being humble, hungry, and hopefully you got some smarts. That's what we're looking for. And as you leave school, I think there are 3 questions that I wish I would have answered well, because I don't think I did. And I think they're the key things to taking on a career. Number 1 is, like Jen said, what do you love to do? Because if you love to do it, it doesn't feel like work, right? It doesn't feel like work. You got to figure that out. Number 2 is, what makes you special? And we're talking about branding here. But let me tell you, it applies to you as you leave school, differentiating yourself in the marketplace in a way that is relevant to somebody who's got a job and wants to hire you. You know, what makes you special? What makes you unique? And understand that and play to those strengths. And then number 3 is, who thinks you're special? Because people who walk on water, you mentioned Alan Zucker, right? So you look at somebody, they walk on water, a superstar, but there are people along the way. They're walking on water. There are really stones underneath those feet all along the way. Guys like Alan that have helped LT to get where he is. Guys like Lamar Hunt and Jerry Yeagley and Bob McNair that have helped to get me where I am. And I'm sure everybody who's as successful as these people are have people that have propelled them along the way. So who thinks you're special will help you to get where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I get asked all the time from people that are interested in getting into broadcast journalism, you know, any advice that I have and how I've gotten to where I've become. And the biggest advice that I gave, and I'm not sure who taught it, maybe it was Dr. Bennett when I was taking his class in sport management at the University of Florida, is don't be afraid to work and be happy and actually go out there and don't have any job be beneath you and go above and beyond. And so, you know, that's the approach that I took when I started out in the television business. I was carrying tripods and I was willing to stay 16 hours and do 25 takes just to make sure that we got it perfectly. You know, I get a water for the PA that's, you know, carrying even more stuff than me. It's about not thinking that you're better than anything, and also being willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And I'll tell you that, as I'm sure these people very high up within their company, the people that stand out, the people that really excel, are those people that don't show up just to do the bare minimum or what's expected, punch that clock 9 to 5 and go home. The ones that really excel are the ones that are coming to you and saying, what else can I do? Here's some of my ideas. Actually, even maybe stepping outside their role and giving, you know, their input. How can we make the company better? How can we build the brand? How can we do all those things? And, you know, from my own personal experience, at least, that's why I've been able to get to where I am and where I, you know, continue to grow. Is you know, 90% of the jobs that I've gotten in this industry have come from word of mouth referral from someone else that I've already worked with in the past. So, you know, it's got to say something that, you know, if you're pleasant to work with, if you work hard, it does leave an impact on people, and they do remember that. And that's why you'll get the deals as a star athlete, not just because there's a lot of good players in the NFL, but you combined with the personality, what you stand for, consistency with their brand, and being top notch and going above and beyond. You know, it really is important. Okay, I got another one.
I just wanted to add, because Jamie said something important. We're all building our own brand, right? Everyone in this room has to go out and figure out how to build a brand, and the brands that are successful are the ones that are unique and have a point of view and bring a benefit. We just went through recruiting. We recruit at 5 schools. And there was a kid from Cal Poly, it's not a school that we recruit at, that sent me an email every day for 60 days. And I was pissed. I wanted to kill this kid. But he got into our office, and not only was he pinging me, but he was pinging HR. And he had tenacity.
I don't want emails for 60 days.
He didn't get in through me because I was pissed, but what he did was smart. And he was tenacious. And he went through HR. And he finally got HR on the phone because they were pissed too. And he noticed that the director of HR had a cold and was flying to meet Jen in Chicago. And he sent her cold medicine the next day that arrived in Chicago when she got to go see Jen Storms. Wow. And HR called back and said, this kid's coming to interview. right? Because he's the most tenacious kid we've seen ever. And we're going to give him a job. It's the stories like that about folks that are cutting through that are special.
The thing I'd add to that is that person had no fear either. So I think when you approach this, it's a little bit of being childlike, because you think about it, you know, Jane's got a little one, and I'm sure it's just whatever. I'm going to jump here, I'm going to walk there, I'm going to fall off this. You don't know, so you're not afraid. And I hear a lot of people when I say, well, just call them, reach out to them, email them when they want to apply for a position or they want to talk to somebody. And I get a lot of people, and quite frankly, I get a lot of women that say, oh no, I don't want to bother them. You know, you're putting up your own roadblocks. So don't put those obstacles in front, don't you put those obstacles in front of you. There are enough obstacles already. Don't set your own in front of you. Have no fear and just go for it.
One last comment that we didn't talk about is the importance of being a team player. And a couple of years ago, LT won the league MVP.
Yep.
And I clipped out his article, his quotes after that. Because when he was asked, what do you think about this award? He said, this is great and all, but what I really want is a Super Bowl ring. This is all about team victories. And I always remember that. It was great.
But no, that's what you want. You want for people to be able to read something you said and remember what you said. You know, because again, that's how you create brands. That's how you stand out. We talk about standing out to people, and that's how it happens. You know, for me, I've always been a team guy. You know, football is not about one man. Never has been, never will be. You know, so I understood that at a very young age that I needed these big guys up front if I couldn't get any yards. I always kept them happy.
You talked about the evolution of Pepsi and brand and how it's changed. What do you think the future, what do you guys think the future is of branding in sports and where it's going?
I think I talked a little bit about where we are in this world of transaction and impressions, and for us, I think it's all about that. I think it's moving from it's a world of signage and impressions and just attaching your name to a partner to truly delivering engaging experiences, and we spent a lot of time thinking about how to do that. And so, in no particular order, there are 4 ways that we're thinking about it, and one is this idea of, as you were talking about, the team enabling experiences, not impressions. Signage and state, and we were kidding ourselves as we took a tour on the campus today, who had more signage. She had towels, I had signs at the baseball field. It's not about that anymore. It's important, and we need that, but it's about delivering experiences. There's the second thing called the digital world, and tapping into the social and digital world. It's really, really important. We ran a program this past year called the Pepsi Refresh Project, which, if you're not aware of it, in its simplicity, it's a really simple program. It's a grant program where we took $20 million and awarded folks who had really cool ideas that could change the world with money to go bring those ideas to life. And from a sports standpoint, it was a platform that was beautiful because I could attach, it was the first time for Pepsi we could attach all of our teams and leagues to this platform. And so the NFL, Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, all of our athletes, we were able to tap into their communities. So it wasn't us force-fitting a message, it was tapping into the teams and the leagues and the athletes who believed in the idea to go out to their communities. And it was unbelievable. We had 20 million people that registered on our website, just crazy numbers. And so we learned that this idea of tapping into social communities is really, really important. The third part about it from a branding standpoint, which in marketing terms we call the democratization of creativity, as I think about Cooper's model, really gets down to, like, we have to invite consumers in to help build our business. And so whether it's helping us to design the product, the taste of the product, the labels, giving us their opinions on what sports programs we should be giving them, that's what we're doing now. We're turning it over to our consumers to get there. And so that's where we see the world going. It's from transactions to engagement, and we're going to have to spend a lot more time in those spaces to make it happen.
Now, when you say experience, the first one you described, what do you mean by that? I can kind of wrap my head around it. What do you mean by having experience?
We've got a new relationship in New York with both the New York Giants and the New York Jets, and an old in the old world, we'd be very satisfied with our consumers coming in and seeing signage in the stadium, and we'd have a really cool suite that we'd be able to go to with our customers and hang out for the day. Go home, everyone smiles. We can't think like that anymore, and so now it's about, we love the signage, but I have to deliver experience to consumers that are coming into the stadium, whether it's outside of the stadium, and giving them some kind of interaction with the players, or a fan interaction, or something. Or when you get into the stadium, the idea of mobile right now, and mobile technology within these stadiums where you can start talking to your friends and talking to the other fans, or ordering product at your seat that Pepsi will be delivered to you. Those start to get to experiences that start to click with people. And so that's what we're working on.
And I'm intrigued, what's the coolest product that was designed in the competition? If you think, I don't know.
Well, so one of our brands, Mountain Dew, which is beloved to me, I have one every morning when I get up. We have this program called Democracy. Consumers they're now driving Mountain Dew for us. Every new flavor that comes out from Mountain Dew was developed by our consumers. The packaging right now, developed by consumers. The programming, the video games, everything, completely now driven by consumers. And so that brand is doing very, very well because it has a point of view. And its point of view is, it's about our consumer. You guys help us get there. You know best.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. You just did the with the Mountain Dew new flavor with Aaron. Yeah, that was neat, and I think Aaron won, right? Is that the solid commercials?
But it's
Supernova.
It's a tricky place. It's a tricky place for a brand when you turn that over. You're turning the trust of your brand over to someone that's not on your team, and that's not historically how brands have made progress. And so but that's where we're headed.
I think we're fortunate because Gatorade has never been about signage and placement and things like that. We've always been just about being, not at all. It was just that we could get further ahead, I think, faster in the sense that we've always been about the athlete. It's never been about putting a sign up because that's not been real to us. So evolution for Gatorade is going from sports drink company to sports performance innovation company. So in other words, we have a right to be there because we have 45 years of science and we have efficacy and we have research and development that no other company worldwide has. So for evolution for us is just getting into those new spaces and working with athletes to determine what their needs are. So whether it's bars of the future, meaning type of a bar, not a bar as in where people may be going later tonight, or bar as in the type you consume, some type of drink, some type of functional piece of equipment, whether it's a new cooler, a new squeeze bottle, something like that. That's evolution for us. And then the other piece of it from a marketing and brand standpoint that we've really, I think, moved forward over the last 12, 16 months in is social media and experimentation in that world and now really driving our brand and our engagement with people through something you might have heard called mission control at Gatorade. So this isn't just about putting up a Facebook page and trying to get a lot of fans. This is actually about driving a dialogue with people online. So people are corresponding with us and we're getting into conversations with people about the Gatorade brand, understanding our products, and doing things with us. And I think that is certainly one place where sports is going to evolve heavily in the future. I don't think we should be myopic to think it's there now. People are still pretty heavily relying on the TV media. The 18 to 24 is still watching 25 hours a week, according to Nielsen. So it's still the bulk of the media that's being consumed. But when you look at digital and social media, it's definitely where sports is going. And you can look at some young athletes, and that's where they're taking things. And I know, how many of you are familiar with Von Miller's working with Gatorade right now? Anybody? Well, you can raise them proudly. There we go. I got some work to do. Working with us right now on the Everything to Prove program as he heads into draft and then hopefully into a season. And all of that is through social media and things that we're doing with him.
Real quick just about social media, because it's become such an interesting dynamic in every facet of every company, but especially in sports. How has that changed? I mean, I assume that you guys used to have to do focus groups and people probably wrote letters in to tell you, but you now have at your fingertips through social media. You know, I assume it's made your jobs easier, or is it you get more letters to read, more emails to read? I mean, how has that changed, and I assume in a positive way then?
It's been incredible for us. I mean, we've got it to the standpoint where our G Series Pro products are just released over the last year, which has typically only been in the locker rooms for folks like Ladanian, and therefore Elite of the Elite, they come into obviously college campuses as well, but consumers haven't been able to find them. And when we launched it last year in GNC, we had people asking and trying to find out and tweeting to their friends or posting on Facebook, you know, I'm trying to find these products. And Gatorade could easily go in and actually retail map for those folks and provide them information on this is where you can find G Series Pro. We also get a lot of information about what consumers are looking for. So we have sort of the ability to look in and look at those cloud conversations and things where are people talking about protein? Are they talking about carbohydrates? Are they talking about electrolytes? Are they talking about natural ingredients, organic? And that can help dictate where the brand is going to go. So it's not only working with athletes like LT, but it's combining that with the conversations that are going on from consumers that for the first time ever, we can listen to and hear what they're saying and what they want to know about, and that can drive your business in a really positive way.
What about you, Jamie, as far as the future of sports branding and pro sports?
Well, I would agree with both that where they are headed in terms of the sophistication of utilizing the assets they have with leagues and with teams, and both these companies are great partners with the National Football League and are a big part of our success. So we're really thankful for that, and want to maintain those relationships for a long time. So how do you do that? Well, you gotta keep up. Right, and so Greg Grissom, he's somewhere here, he's here today, oversees all of our sponsor relationships. And what was 10 or 15 years ago, a couple of people that put up signs, right, delivered tickets, and at the end of the year showed you that they did everything, are now really a full-service marketing agency. That if a sponsor, and they are trying to come to the table with great ideas to grow the business of our partners. And in our business, fortunately, we have the same people year after year, so we build an understanding of their business, whether that's Verizon Wireless or Miller & Budd, who are both partners with us, or Ford. We get to understand that business, and it's incumbent upon us to come with creative marketing concepts. They may not adopt them all, but we all, both of us need to be thinking how we achieve their objectives. It's really becoming a marketing agency within a sports team.
What about you, Ladanian, in terms of from a professional athlete standpoint, where do you hope the future of sports and branding goes?
Yeah, I think to continue to build relationships with some of the big sponsors that particularly are National Football League or whatever sport you play. But it's interesting to me the move that LeBron James made. I'll just talk about it for a second. I think all athletes try to get to the level where LeBron is as far as his marketing and branding wise and what he wants to get accomplished. So I think, for most guys, that's the pinnacle. That's the standard what you want to be judged by, in the same sense of back in the 90s what Michael Jordan did. Kind of that's the measuring stick. And so for us, is continue to build that relationship beyond football with the companies you were with before, to continue to, even beyond football, to have a relationship with Gatorade or whatever your sponsor may be. I think that's the next level that guys will try to get to.
Yeah, I'd add it's important for this group if you're interested in sports from a job standpoint. It's almost recession-proof if you think about it, right? So if you're thinking about growth industry, and my dad teases me all the time about sports marketing, what are you doing? Where's the growth in that? And so I did some fact-finding. But at the end of the day, 87% of Americans are sports fans. Even with the recession going on right now, the movie business, the entertainment business are down between 15 and 20%, and sports is like +1 or 2. And so I think it goes a long way in terms of talking about sports within our culture from a growth standpoint, even during recessions. And the latest facts that we've taken a look at would suggest that consumers in recession years are more apt to spend more of their money engaging and absorbing in sports from a comfort standpoint, for whatever it's worth.
Good to know. I guess at this point we can open up questions. If you guys, I'm not sure how they're going to do that. Probably just raise your hand and stand up. Anybody have any questions?
Jim,
Yeah.
when you ask a question, can you please state your name, maybe for sport management major, right? That's good branding.
Good branding, there you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to stand up?
Sure.
Sure. I'm Jonathan, I'm a sports management major. And my question is to you, with you playing ball at Clemson and winning the national championship, as a player, what did you what did you do and what did you use to brand yourself going into the corporate world after leaving the side of athletics?
Well, Jonathan, that's a good question. You know, I think when people are hiring somebody out of college, you don't have a lot of experience. So some of the predictors that I think they were looking at for me is, if you can handle, I was a really good student. I was an athlete and did best during the season, right, when I had little time to do anything else. I was really involved in campus, on campus. I was president of our student body and involved in our Letterman's Club. And you start to show the signs of being able to lead, and they certainly show a work ethic, a commitment to performing at the highest level. Those things, you really, past history is not always a predictor of future performance, but I think when you're hiring somebody out of school and you see that they've done those breadth of things and have operated at that highest level, you pretty much figure they can do what you want them to do. So I think it was more the preparation than how I might have presented myself at the end of that experience.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I'm Adam. I'm a sport management major. With the NFL lockout coming up, how does that, I know that's elephant in the room, but how's that affecting your brands and where y'all are going in the future?
Killing us, Gene.
I'll take it. I'll take it to start, please. I'm deflecting. You know what, actually? We're partnered with, like I said at the beginning, leagues, teams, and athletes. We have invested in all areas. And the program that I mentioned to you, Everything to Prove, it's not effective. We keep going. So business is still being driven with NFL because, again, these are still elite athletes. These are still teams that represent the elite athletes, and it's still a league that we partner with that has a big brand, like Jamie said, or like LT said, I think it's the biggest brand in the United States. So for Gatorade, again, it is about the athleticism, and it's not as though if this is happening now that all of a sudden he's not an athlete. He's still an athlete. He's still working out. He's still the best of the best. So the Everything to Prove program is 14 rookies, and we started right after most of them were eligible after BCS, and we've been working with them, and we don't plan to change it. We plan to continue it, and we'll move forward.
I, however, have some growth targets that are very dependent on having displays up in stores, right? So we spend a lot of money with the NFL. We're partners with both the NFL and the Players Association, and so we're kind of in Switzerland right now. I'm optimistic that this thing is going to get done, however, as we talked about before. Where it affects us is from a planning standpoint. I have to deliver displays and marketing material out to our customer universe in the fall, no matter if football is there or not. And so where it forces us to do double work is planning if the NFL is not going to be there, what program is going to be in its place. And so we're huge believers in football. From a merchandising standpoint, we're now moving forward with dual programming. If the NFL is locked in, we've got displays to go. If not, we've got different generic football displays with pieces that can be adhesive pieces where you can bring in your local college team as an example. And so really the problem for us right now is more of the wasted time and duplication of resources, because it all costs money and it's about resources. And so we're very hopeful and optimistic that it comes together pretty quickly. And I think everyone in this room would agree, the amount of money and the huge success of the NFL, there's no reason that these guys shouldn't figure this out through mediation and be playing pretty soon.
My name is Catherine. I'm a sport management major, and I had a question, I guess more for Gatorade, maybe everybody, but in our classes we kind of talk about how with the digital age and a lot more kids are playing video games and going outside to playing sports, what are you, like, what do you all think of, like, how are you marketing to that and trying to get them out off the couch and outside, and like what are you guys doing about that from a business standpoint?
Absolutely, it's a great question. The good news is that we haven't necessarily had to react to that happening within the youth landscape of video games taking over, in the sense that for at least the last 15 years, we've had an incredibly strong youth and camp focus. So we spend, like I said, my job is sports and event marketing. The event marketing piece of that is we reach 500,000 youth athletes every single year based on our own programs that we put on. So not necessarily things that we're going to partner with other groups throughout the year like the NFL or even another league or team. Our own business is driving camps and partnerships that are about youth athletes out there playing sports. It's a variation of sports, it's not just one. And it has to do a lot actually through our university relationships. So through the summer months is when a lot of them happen, and we come out, like to Texas A&M, and we grab a bunch of youth athletes and bring them to a program. And like Jeff said, an important component of that to learn about making an impact in a youth's life is it's not just about bringing them out to play soccer and handing them a Gatorade. It's about sitting them down with someone that they trust and having that person explain to them why Gatorade is important for their nutrition and for their performance. Because that's the message that they're going to take home. That's the message that they're going to understand. So it's not just about hand it to them and when they come off the sidelines, because as a kid they're not going to understand the why and the how and the when and all those pieces. We also know from our own sort of youth adoption or our own adoption model that it is that young teen athlete of when they're going to become a Gatorade athlete or not, when you're going to adopt us as a brand. So that's why youth is very much a focus. But I also say we're partaking in those video games. I mean, we're participating. We want to make sure that when you're playing NBA 2K, we're in that, so that you know that Gatorade is on the sidelines. So I know that sounds kind of funny, where it's not necessarily promoting through the video game that they go out and play sports, but we have to make sure that we're still being part of that youth lifestyle and what they're doing. So we'll promote through our camps to get them out there, but also when it comes to the games themselves, we want to make sure that we're representing that we are the authentic brand still. We are on the sidelines fueling the athletes.
And I'll add to that. I think that's where also athletes come in at, because, in my day growing up, we did go outside and play all day long. That's what we did. And you did play video games, but going outside was more important. But athletes now, it's our job to go around, and educate the kids about going outside and playing and the importance of doing so. In fact, that's the part of, I have a project under my foundation that we're doing, Project 21, where we're going around, we're setting up a program and going around and talking to some of these elementary schools and middle schools about proper nutrition, exercising, and just kind of not being in the house as much, playing games, and how fun it is to get out and play and run with your friends and eating the right things. So as athletes, we have to be a big part of the future of our kids today also.
This is for Jamie. Are you at all, not to beat a dead horse, with the lockout, are you worried that the image in the eyes of the fan is going to be affected at all? Because I'm a huge Texans fan, and I don't want the lockout to happen, but 30-something days in, you at all worry that you're going to lose some fan base when this happens?
Yeah, your name again?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. So, thanks, Jonathan. I'm glad you're a Texans fan. You're a smart man. There's some but, after you're always concerned.
You should have told him that was good. Come on.
But you're always concerned about, and I would tell you, just the players, the owners, league staff, team staff, everybody's concerned about the relationship with our fans. And when you ask the question, who they blame for all this, a couple people blame the players, a couple people blame the owners, everybody else blames both of us, right? So nobody's excited about where we are right now, but we are excited that conversations are happening and that it appears that progress is starting to be made. And hopefully that wraps up in short order because, right now, we are still, it is the off-season, it's a time of preparation for the teams and for the players and guys like LT and others. They're out staying fit and ready at a moment's notice to get back to what they love and what we love them to do. We're preparing for the draft, so certainly there's a lot of excitement around that. But hopefully in the not too distant future, it gets resolved and we move on to playing football, because you're right. That it's not a subject that the fans want to spend any time on. They just want it to get resolved and move on, and we agree with that.
I'm Ryan, I'm a sport manager and grad student. I was just kind of wondering how much your competition influences your marketing and branding. I know we talked a little bit about the Texans in class when y'all started up. Your main competition, especially in this state, was the Cowboys, and they were branded as America's team. And so it was kind of cool to look how y'all made yourself more assertively Texas's team. And so I was just kind of wondering, like, how Pepsi and Gatorade, do you track your competition's marketing and branding, and do you kind of play off that, or does it have any kind of influence?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Every week we're thinking about the competition. But it's more in we have to have a clear point of view of what we want to go do. And any brand right now, to get back to the earlier conversation, you have to have a unique point of view and a point of differentiation versus your competition. And if you don't have that, you're not in business. Take a look at any newspaper these days. There's so many brands and companies that have gone out of business over the last 10 years, companies that you never would have thought about. And it's because they haven't kept a unique point of view and differentiated. And so I think that's where we start. But of course, we keep an eye on all of the entire beverage world. We have a very big competitor down in Atlanta that's very good at what they do. And so we probably think about them more often than some of our other competitors, but that's not to suggest that anyone, as I look at my business, it's not just about carbonated soft drinks, it's about any space within liquid refreshment beverages in terms of share of stomach. Those are our competitors. And so, yeah.
I would say absolutely we pay attention, but we do not react. We're 80 share in the market, so the key is, the next closest is, down in the tens. So I think the key is to make sure that obviously it's good business to know what's going on around you, but to then react to it is not good business for us. And I think, I'm sure LaDainian has good stories about, and the student athletes in here probably experienced it. In the sports nutrition landscape, there are a lot of people out there trying to come up with the silver bullet and this is the greatest thing ever, and you need to try this drink or eat this bar and you're going to run faster, jump higher, and score more points. And those are the ankle biters to us. So we could spend a lot of time, resources, and energy trying to fend those off, or we could focus on being the leader and doing what's right and holding to our science and saying, keep moving forward. And it's amazing, those ankle biters, they fall off. And I don't know, LT, if that's your experience in league of just everybody kind of coming up to you with, hey man, try this.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a part of it. As athletes, there's a lot of people that feel like we're the perfect person to get that message out. Mm-hmm. And so you do get a lot of people, I'm talking just crazy stuff, offering you to do stuff and telling you, how much you can make and all kind of numbers. And so, yeah, but, as Jen said, when you're Gatorade, you kind of like Michael Jordan. You have to react to him.
I want to ask you a question about that. There's a thing of mine that being at the top and staying at the top could be a challenge when you don't have, too much competition. Do you find it a positive that you guys are at the top and don't have to, the closest is at a 10%, and so is it a challenge to stay fresh, or, which I assume is not, but you guys have obviously been successful for a long time, but, what are your thoughts on being so high and so better than the next in line?
No, Jen brings up a great question and a great point, and it's interesting because Gatorade went through a period of time when macroeconomic pressures were bad and still recovering from that. And when the company realized actually that as the leader, we might not have been paying attention as much as we needed to the types of things that are meeting the needs of all athletes. We were focusing on Gatorade Thirst Quencher, and not necessarily looking and seeing the landscape change with regard to athletes and performance, and that allowed a lot of these ankle biters to come in. So you have a lot of people that have been with the company for a long time that have that on top mentality. I came from a company that actually had the challenger mentality. Turner Sports was the challenger, actually, and we were always trying to be as good as ESPN when it came to sports programming, sports broadcasting, and marketing. And so that's why I think when Gatorade was doing a little bit of a turnaround, and I think part of the reason why I was brought there was someone who does have a little bit of a challenger mentality to come in and maybe give a refreshing perspective on going back and taking a look and making sure that you really focus on don't ever take your foot off the gas. And I'll say that we even do that up to our CEO, Andrew Newey, when Gatorade's doing rather well right now. If you go in and look at the press, I mean, we're now growing again. It's really great. But the key is that you don't take the foot off the gas. Keep going. Keep the foot down. Make sure you keep the marketing pressure on. Make sure you keep dedicating resources, because we will continue to grow because the model is there and it's going well.
I'm Bonner. I'm actually a pro rodeo athlete, and I've worked in the past for one of those ankle biters. So from a product development standpoint, we had a workout and recovery drink, and we hated to see you guys come in here recently. But is that more of a shift in focus? You mentioned, been in locker rooms for years, but the general public, student athletes, is that something that is shifting more to focus on more of a high development product, I guess?
I want to answer your question, Bonner. So you mean the recovery specifically?
Right.
So no, I think what we're focusing on is meeting the needs of all athletes. So again, what I said with Gatorade Thirst Quencher and G2, the lower calorie, it was all about being the during occasion. You're drinking it during athleticism, or you might be rehydrating outside of your workout or outside of your team sport that you're playing. What we realize, though, is that whether it's United States or globally, there are need states of every single athlete. How many people in here are athletes? Or do something in some athletic manner? Okay, thank you. How many of you, when you're doing that, try to make sure you do something before you go to either work out or play your sport, while you're doing sport, and then you do something after your sport? Thank you. So the need state is universal. So we're focusing on the need state, not necessarily the fact that it's recovery. It's more the need state. What does Ladinian Tomlinson need before he plays football? What does he need during, and what does he need after? And that's what's driving us, because quite frankly, like I said, it's a global model. It's not just a football model or a baseball model. It's a pro rodeo model. You need something before, during, and after. Hopefully it answers the question.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm Dr. Kreider, Department Head, so welcome.
Thank you.
My field's sports nutrition, so I've been doing the research for 25 years. And so I've actually was working with Pepsi when they were trying to launch All Sport.
Ah, yes.
I worked with the Gatorade Sports Science Institute for years, and all the big players. So what we noticed as some scientists was Gatorade got very hydration focused, wouldn't look outside the box. And the sports nutritionists that I've worked with and researchers are very happy to see guys getting into the pre and during and post-workout type markets, because that's how you optimize performance.
Yeah.
But my question is, Pepsi decided to go into it, but obviously Sport didn't quite make it. Now you purchased Gatorade, obviously acquired it. Gatorade shifted and thought, because there are a lot of folks who Gatorade Sports Sciences who think that it's just, let's just drink. And there's more to sports nutrition as food drink. And so what shifted that? Was it the demographics of the listening to the athlete, or was it seeing the market share of Gatorade and saying that's how we need to get into that market, how are we going to compete? So what shifted that over time?
I think the answer is a lot of those things. I said earlier, you have to look at what was happening is our eyes opened with the macroeconomic issues, and when all of a sudden we started declines in the brand a few years ago, and you have to go back and you have to say why did we decline? And one of the things we found was that we were not necessarily focusing on athletes. Our focus 100% is on athletes. Now, there are people that like to drink Gatorade for taste profile, that like to just sit on a couch with a bag of Doritos and have a Gatorade. Great. We're happy that they do that, but we're not going to build our business and the success of our business around that, because that person is going to realize when times get tough and the wallet gets a little pinched, they're going to realize, oh, maybe I don't need Gatorade. I can just grab some tap water with my Doritos. They're still going to keep the Doritos though. So I think the key is that not only did we realize that, so we had to go back and we had to look and realize that it's not just about hydration, but then we peeled back the Gatorade Sports Science Institute and we were able to take a look and say, wait a minute, they're not just doing research and long-term R&D on hydration. They were actually doing it on protein and other things that were well beyond just the moment of sweat and electrolytes. And that's what really led us to understand that, like we like to say internally, we have a right to win. And we have a right to win in the space of total sports nutrition, and that's why within a very short amount of time, globally, we will be the leader in sports nutrition. We're glad that you have been helping us, so thank you, because it's actually, sorry to cut you off really fast, it's actually our university relationships and our relationships with people like LT's head athletic trainer, which are driving it. Jeff said that Mountain Dew is driven by the fans, Gatorade is driven by the athletes, by our advisors within the colleges and universities, and by our advisors within the athletic training staff and strength and conditioning. We're not, for one instance, thinking that we're sitting back and just coming up with stuff. It is developed because of these people, and all of you sitting in the room. All of you sitting in the room, G-Series Fit, which just launched a week ago, if you're fitness athletes, was developed because of you and the routines that you have as fitness athletes.
I was just going to add, because these guys just took us through their business model at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and what was striking is the question for me was, why didn't we as a company start getting more aggressive in that space earlier? And so the dynamic was, there was consumer information to suggest that there were chinks in the armor relative to thinking about the consumer and what the consumer wanted. And the team at the time, profit was good, sales was good, and share was good. And so the team wasn't talking about that, right? And so then you got to a place where all of a sudden there were some volume and share issues from a business standpoint. It forced the team, and it's actually a new team, to now focus really hard about what is the consumer actually asking for and what's the best way to go deliver that. And it's now resulted in a lot of innovation and a lot of focus. And so it's been a success story, but I think the question still remains, how do you get to a place in your culture where even if times are good from a volume and a share and a profit standpoint, if there's consumer information that's pointing to a problem, you bring it up and you deal with it now. And I think this was the perfect story for us to learn from, that you can't, to Jen's point, you can't keep your foot on the pedal, but when that data starts coming in, you have to react to it.
Hi, I'm Becca. I'm actually a telecommunication major, not a sport management. It's my minor though. And my question is, I work for our video board here at A&M, and I actually make the Pepsi feature for our baseball games. And at the beginning of the season, we had to get in contact with Pepsi because the emblem changed. Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, why did it change and what drives that? And I don't know if you guys would change your emblem either, so I just wanted to ask that question.
And I had to fly out here on a moment's notice on a Saturday to help change that emblem because our CEO is coming 2 days after that, so it was timely. No, I think from a brand standpoint, I think every company goes through brand innovation, and I think as a company we decided it was time to innovate the Pepsi brand and to change things up. And the project was called Breathtaking, and it wasn't just brand Pepsi, it was across our company. We made a decision that design is really, really important to our brands, and that we had probably been laying back a little bit in terms of design of our packaging. And that's not just to change the brand, but it's also to start thinking more creatively about what packaging we can bring out. 2-liter bottles, as an example, have been around forever, and they've always looked the same, right? We know that there's a better package that we can deliver 2-liter in. And so I think our company got to a point where we said design is so critical to our brands, and it was time to make a change. And so at the time we actually made changes to brand Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Sierra Mist. Pretty much every brand in our portfolio changed over a 9-month period. I think the question is, did we change some of it too quickly? Because some of the design changes didn't stick, and we were forced to come out with new packaging. But it was really about innovation and design, and let's not sit back. Let's be forward thinking.
Cody Daniels, sports management major. When sponsoring athletes, how do you react when players get in trouble?
Jeff?
Gatorade really sponsors more athletes than Pepsi.
How do I react to athletes that get in trouble?
Publicly or when she's at home?
You know, we've only had one. I didn't say that. I mean, it goes back to we don't have to react. We have not had to react, let's put it that way, since the years of Jordan until recently. And we don't expect to react in the future. And that goes back to the fact that when we find and we work with athletes, it's not a phone call to their agent and we sign them. It's, we know his family, we know his wife, we know his background. We've spoken to his high school coaches. We've spoken to his college coaches and athletic trainers. We're probably more in his shorts than he wants us to be. And that's quite honestly why we don't have to react. And, it's got to be a balance also. I mean, we do have a couple of athletes that are very socially mobile, shall we say. They are very heavy on Twitter, heavy on Facebook, and with the new G Series Fit line, we signed a lot of pretty young, democratized athletes that are very, very socially heavy as well. And I follow all of them. I don't tweet myself, but I am like the voyeur. I'm watching. It's like Big Mother, watching all the children, on the Twitter feed. And I got to tell you, a couple of them can borderline almost step in it, and it's with their fans and things that they're saying and things that they're doing. So they have to be very careful. And as a professional athlete, I'm sure Ladini has thoughts on why or why not you've chosen a social media path. But I think you have to be very careful in that space because you can very quickly lose a sponsor and a relationship off of something that's very small. Very small. I don't know, you probably have thoughts on it.
I agree. I mean, you always have to think about what you're doing and who you represent, not only your family, but the sponsors. And, and so a lot of stuff, you understand right away that you can't do it. You just cannot do it. And so, but I think, sometimes when you're young, guys may do something that they may think they're able to get away with. But as Jen said, you always have to, you just have to watch what you do because in today's world, cell phones, are everywhere. And just like that, you can get caught doing something. And so, you always want to be on your toes and aware. And honestly, nowadays, you have people, when you're coming out of college, they teach you. They teach you, how to handle yourself, what things to do, what not to do, kind of the type of people you should hang around. And so, it's there. It's up to the individual to follow.
It shocks me that people think that they're going to let something slide. And I tell athletes, if you're going to put it on Twitter, you might as well put it on the ticker on the bottom of ESPN. Because that's, as a reporter, not even to find bad stuff, but that's when I'm going to cover a baseball team. A good example last week, I was covering South Carolina Tennessee baseball game, and Jackie Bradley Jr. had a back sprain and didn't play on Tuesday. And the first thing I did was go to his Twitter where he said, "I'm playing today." And I talked about that in my report before the game. Coach says if he says he's good, he's going to play, and he says he's good because it's on Twitter. So it's interesting that I still find it fascinating that people in the public eye gets shocked when they say something and everybody knows about it.
And I would say also, like myself and a lot of athletes that I guess have reached a certain point, you don't Twitter, Facebook, nothing. I've never done it before ever. I just feel like I don't need to, and so I guess a lot of athletes feel like that. But certain guys will do it so they can get the attention, obviously.
And build their brand, or try to create a brand that maybe don't have the availability of larger companies.
Sure. Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I'm actually a political science major, but I'm a big Jets fan and more so an LT fan. So, but I have a question regarding your branding. How far do you plan to go? I know you talked about MJ and LeBron.
Yeah.
How far do you want to take your brand? I know you're endorsing corporations, but how far, ideally, would you like to take your brand?
Yeah. I don't think there's a limit. I don't think you get to a point where you say, okay, I'm good. I think this is the point. I think you just kind of, you just keep going as long as you can to that point where I guess it stops itself. I guess, I've never really thought about that, to be honest with you. I just know I've tried to partner with great people who have great brands that can last a long time. And so that's always been my approach, and that's the way I plan on continuing to do so, even beyond football.
One more questions? Sure.
This is for Jen. Kind of piggybacking off the other question, we're talking about athletes that you guys want to target. You've got guys in basketball, football, golf. What about the more polarizing sports like maybe boxing or mixed martial arts? If a guy can fit the qualities that you're looking for to be real, credible, and authentic, how willing would you be to go with him and let him represent Gatorade, or shy away from him based on kind of the stigma associated with those sports?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Gatorade athletes in our roster, it's changed dramatically over the last probably 3 and 4 years. And the word we use actually is democratizing athleticism, and it's gone into various places. So Gatorade in Canada is with George St. Pierre. He's their highest ranking athlete on the roster. He'll be launching the G Series in Canada in 2 weeks. So that's a big deal. So I don't think that Gatorade is not about any sport. It's just a matter of where we're going and where we're focusing resources. If we had all the money in the world and all the resources, we would go out to every athlete. We would go out to every team and every league, because they're all athletes who are true to their sport and they're performing. It's not about not being somewhere and being somewhere else. It's just a resource thing. I think what we have to make sure we're understanding is also where our target is. Like I said earlier, it's the team target that we're going after in that performance athlete. So when you look at it, right now the heavy lifting is done by the stick and ball sports. But we are getting further into, like if you look at action, we've had an action platform for at least 3 or 4 years now that we're trying to get into action, and those familiar with it know you can't just jump into action and throw up signs. You've got to make sure you come in and not be authentic, otherwise those athletes will just shun you. So you have to make sure the way you approach the action sports is really authentic to them and how they are going to treat your brand and interact with your brand. So we work with snowboarding, BMX, skateboarding in 2 ways, both competition-wise from like at X Games and then also just like streetboarding. So there's really no limit to where we'd be. I don't think there's a place where we won't be or where we would be necessarily. It's just the resources. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Bear with me for just a second. I got a couple of people I'd like to introduce. Dr. Batista, where are you? It's Dr. Batista. Hey, Dr. Batista. Dr. Batista is our department chair, our division chair rather, those of you that don't know him, in sport management. And Dr. Kreider, who spoke up earlier, is the department chair for
Stand up.
Obviously, we'd like to thank the panel, and there's a lot I could say. This is right down the fairway for me. That's why we did this particular thing. But this particular product was done simply because we wanted you guys to have some sense of what you can be one day and really what's going on in the industry, and so to try to educate you in that manner. And what you see up here, in all honesty, is the best of the best. This is an incredible thing that just happened. I've never seen a panel like this on anything or any conference that I've ever been at, and what the talent that is up here is incredible. It really is incredible. I'm going to say some more specific things about them, but in just a second. But we also do this because this can be you, and as your professor, most of your professor, I guess, and as a department, a division, we really want you to be this. That's why we do our jobs. You know, obviously we get paid some money, and that's a nice thing. But we do our job so that we can make y'all better, and that's the whole purpose of doing this as well. We obviously, you see two people from Pepsi and Gatorade, two global brands. They're not just Texas or local brands, they're global brands, very well respected. I think that Jeff made a comment about youthful when he was talking about some brand attributes earlier. That should be really resonating with you guys, and they do a great job of doing that. Jeff is a superstar, no question about it. So this is a guy that's the guy at Pepsi as far as sports marketing is concerned. So it's a big deal there. Jen, I think you can see in Gatorade, it's really nice to be Gatorade, you know. I don't know if you said 84% or whatever, but her personality is fantastic. That's why she's obviously risen to the top of her game. And I will say to you, this young lady right here was my student. So it is possible for you to be this stuff. Do you understand?
I owe it all to him.
That's right.
I just wondered, does he still embarrass people by putting pictures of them in his presentation?
They're in the front row, yes.
Victims, because I was definitely, every day, Jackie Marquetta and I, she was also on the softball team of Florida, and every day we just be like, I just wonder what picture he's going to put up this week or today. And so that was, but very memorable, and,
yes.
And I owe it all to him.
And I'm really thankful how obviously she's extremely successful, but the truth is she's just like you guys. That's the truth, and she is really, and she maintains that. And that's why I'm saying to you, you can be that. It just depends if you listen to what they told you tonight about how you become successful and do those types of things. It'll help you. And it may not be on this scale. You know what? It may not be. But at least you can still be successful if you follow those things. Now, I will tell you, I don't know LT, but I just got to know him a little while ago. I know I've coached guys that are pitching in the big leagues and doing all that stuff. But I can tell you right now, this dude is genuine. He took time out of his schedule, didn't have to do this, did not have to come here and do this by any stretch of the imagination. And he took his time to do it, and not only that, but he spent some time with some kids. And that was one of the most real things I've seen a professional athlete do in a long, long time. And it was incredible. He's the real deal. This guy's legit. So what you see on the commercials, which the commercials are very well done, and Gatorade obviously does a great job with all that they do, but it does fit this guy, I'm telling you. So anytime, you know, I'm in the past I love LT as a player, but now it's a little bit different for me, and I think it's going to be for you guys as well. How many of you have my class before? Anybody tell me what I say when I talk about the Houston Texans? The best, what I say?
Best branding company, or best brand organization has been the NFL.
That's exactly right, without question.
The checks are clearing, Jamie.
There's two sides to the Texans. The one side is, what do I say about the product on I say it a lot in class, the product on the field is what it is. You can't change that. You know, they play, do their deal. But that is the best run organization in professional sports, no question. And that's because of this guy. And the stuff he's saying, hopefully you heard what he said. He didn't say we're just trying to make money and win championships. He said all of the things. And that company, Greg, true or false, that's how y'all operate.
Every day.
Every day. Exactly what they're supposed to do. And with that, I'm going to also introduce my the next person I want to talk to you guys before we get out. And that's Steve Moore. But by the way, all these great jobs. Wouldn't y'all want to do their jobs? I want to do LT's. Great jobs, they're fantastic jobs, but think about this. If you can't do these things, you can grow up one day and be the CMO for a major university. And we have a guy at Texas A&M who is a sports guy, who he basically is the marketing face, does all the marketing stuff, the chief marketing officer for Texas A&M University. Steve Moore wants to talk to you for a second.
Well, before I talk, I want to recognize one thing. We've got some great panelists up here, but this is about sports branding, right? And I wouldn't be doing my job if I wouldn't talk a little bit about the A&M brand. And what they may not realize is they're sitting in front of one of the strongest brands in the country, and that's the 12th man. So you guys give yourselves a hand. One thing about this school that nobody debates, and Jen could speak to it, her teammates at ESPN, Herb Street and Fowler particularly are big fans of A&M and what they do. But what I wanted to say to you is very short and sweet. One thing they talked about tonight was making a positive difference. People who are passionate and make a difference. And all of us start very normal. I mean, everybody here is normal. You're normal. You feel normal. You think, gosh, I'm not that special. I can't make that much of a difference. The fact is, if you work hard and do the things you heard tonight, you can. You can absolutely do that. It's all within your grasp. But what you should take away is, as Greg said, this is an incredible group of people. They've done incredible things, and like Jeff said, they do have cool jobs. I mean, there's no question about it. But the fact is, what they've done tonight is the best example of what we talk about here at campus all the time about selfless service. These people have donated their incredibly valuable time to come here tonight when they could be home with their families, could be doing other things, could be out selling more Gatorade. They're here with you. And they're here with you because they want to make a positive difference in your life. And that says a heck of a lot about them as people and what they think about and what's in their soul and what integrity and character means. Because at the end of the day, those are the things that you have. That's what's important. And that's what nobody can take away from you. And you can always do regardless of what your job is or regardless of what obstacles you have. So if you could, I'd like you to give them one more hand for what they've done.
Okay, we have some things to give you guys later as well, but tonight, because we think this is appropriate, we are going to give you JD. Where are you at? All right, JD's used to work in basketball here. Now he's one of our rock stars. It's definitely a rising star. But JD this afternoon went by and got from the women's basketball team. It's all the seniors and Coach Blair, correct? Yes, sir. So there are some draft choices on here, right? Maybe some future Gatorade athletes. Absolutely. And we're going to give each one of you one of those. That fits real well on a corporate shelf.
Thank you.
So people can see that.
Thank you.
And then Steve also has something that he would like to give you guys that is very important. Again, Texas A&M is one of the greatest brands in the world. And we wanted to give you a book that Steve will describe.
What we've got here is some commemorative copies of Standing Together, which is the spirit of Kyle Field. And it's obviously about one of our biggest brands and something that's very important to all of us. So we actually had Homer Jacobs and Rusty Burson autograph these for the guys, something to remember from their visit to Aggieland.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much.
They went with a full name there.
They did. Only my mom says Jennifer.
That's it.
Hopefully I'm not in trouble.
Well, Rusty's kind of grandfatherly. Don't anybody tell him if you do. Okay, we're going to adjourn now. And really, I could do this all day. Honestly, I could sit and listen to these guys all day. But we're going to adjourn. Here's the deal. We have other places we got to go. I know some of y'all are real eager to bull rush, pardon the pun, maybe LT here. He has to go. I think he's got to go pretty quickly. If he wants to stick around, it's his choice. That's his choice, but I think he is on a schedule, so don't get offended if he stands up here for about 2 or 3 minutes and then I have to pull him out of here. Yeah. Because if you get offended, then there won't be a lot of branding going on. And then Jen, I'm sure, they're all probably going to stand up here for a little bit, but we have to be somewhere fairly quickly. So.
And we have to be out of this room at 8.
Yeah, so that's 15 minutes. It won't last that long, I can tell you. I'm pulling you out before then. All right, thank y'all for coming.